Hello everyone and welcome to February's Our Mixed Media Moods for 2019. Here's our mood board, lots of neutral colors and like dark grays and browns with pops of gold. I decided to do a geode experiment. I have loved all those geode videos that are going around with the high gloss tops and the delicious metallic and glittery like versions, and I love all of them. So I went straight in to see if I could do a sort of flatter version of a geode and with stuff I have on hand. I didn't go out and buy a whole bunch of extra glitters or metallic paints. I just used whatever I had around my studio. And I am showing you here at the beginning my absolute favorite mark that I've been making lately, and it is really, really delightful. It's the same mark that is on the cover of my journal for the Mad Matter workshop that I am holding with Tina Walker in Pennsylvania. If you're interested in that, Tina and I are teaching a 3-day workshop, 2-teacher event all about handmade dies. So you should totally check that out. Look on my Instagram, check Tina Walker's Instagram, check her website for all the info, or just private message me, get with me. It's a really incredible weekend. That's in April. So we have a lot of really cool stuff planned with that. But I'm so sorry. So I got really carried away because I love this mark. I love this mark so much. So I've been mark making and experimenting, and I tried the 100 Days project, and I was testing out marks and things like that. And I pick up mark suggestions and ideas from other instructors, other teachers, other mixed media artists, other product designers. But always, I think we are searching for exactly who we are as artists. And this mark was totally just like, I was looking at my journal cover, I made all these awesome little dots, and then I thought I really need to add some stripes. I love stripes. So I did, and I made them connect to the top layer of the dots, and I just love it. This mark is going to show up on so much of my work, and you can see here how easy it was to make. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know, and if you haven't, you know now that I really love grunge. So I love black and white and grunge, and these mediums work perfectly for that. So I started out, I started out with a cardstock base. I do usually start with watercolor paper, but I have been trying really hard to branch out a bit, including this geode experiment, by the way. It's kind of crazy town, but it turned out really, really interesting, and I learned a lot. So I started with a watercolor base, and then I used my Stabilo Mark-Saw. And I put all those little dots at the bottom, and then I sketched out my lines like kind of haphazard, wonky, just wherever the pencil led itself. And then I used clear Liquitex Gesso to both seal and activate the Stabilo. So when I do that, because the gesso is wet, it activates the Stabilo, but then once it dries, it's clear and it's matte and it has tooth, and then I can play on top of that mark that is now permanently embedded in the bottom layer. So it's really great because as I'm moving that brush around, the more I move the brush around on top of the Stabilo, then the more it activates the Stabilo and moves the Stabilo around as well. So it gets kind of grungy, kind of dark in some areas. It's really, really a very cool technique. Then also I was a little bit too quick and kind of sloppy, so I have some areas where the gesso got a little extra thick, or somewhere it's a little extra thin. And this is my result. It's really great. I knew also that I was working on cardstock, and because that paper is so porous, I turned it over and worked the back with clear gesso as well. I just didn't want my paper to fall apart. I am experimenting, but I still would like to have a final piece at the end. So here is my final result. I love it. I love it so much. It could be a piece all on its own. However, it doesn't really pertain to our mixed media moods that much, because even though I pulled those lines sort of as inspiration from the image in the middle bottom, I still needed to bring in more inspiration. And then this is where like the gold and the geode really sort of come into play. I am using some watered down acrylic paint. This is Amsterdam acrylics, and it's in a really nice sort of smoky gray color. And I'm using a lot of water because I want that fluid motion that comes in the geodes where the colors really overlap and there's lights and darks, hues and values, and just lots of really beautiful stuff going on. So this portion of the geode, what should I say? The Geode Experiment, I'm trying to get the same look in geodes without having to do so many layers and especially thick layers of stuff. But so I'm going along with some of the things that I already know. I know that I can add water to acrylic. I know that I can thin it out. I know that I can leave it thicker in some places for a more opaque um, application. And then I also know that if I let the outside dry and I then wipe up the excess, that I'll have sort of like a hollow area in the middle. So I'm going with all of that information that I already have, and I'm trying to replicate this geode idea. And then I love this because this piece ends up being like really flat compared to some of the other geodes that I've seen, the ones that are all like 100% resin and chunky glitters and things like that. So this could easily turn into a journal cover or, all kinds of things, just nice and flat. You can make frames out of it. It's really, really exciting. I'm really happy with the experiment in general. I learned a lot, and I'll change a few things if I do it again, but it's been fun. So I am using right now some vintage pattern paper, and I have just torn it by hand. If you've not used vintage pattern paper before, it's a lot like a tissue paper. So if you add just a little bit of fluid matte medium to it, it makes a really great collage element. Also sort of similar to tea bags. It's really, really thin, but it's got this great almost masking tape color to it, just this vintage tone that really adds depth to your projects. And in this case, it's helping set more of the goldy orangey tone for my geodes, for those like really beautiful clusters that happen. And I will say this, I am working against the grain now, and by that I mean when you see a geode, it has very, which you can see I'm creating right now, like very wavy sort of non-specific lines. But I'm building my geodes on top of this really cool mark that I've made in the background, and that is only aiding to the fact that it's a bit more of an abstract piece rather than a 100% geode replication. So keep that in mind too. It's definitely a different take on geodes. How about we say that? And I'm going back and forth between my Stabilo Marxol, my Sharpie white paint pen, and my graphite pencil. And if you've been around for a while, and I know I say that a lot, I have some standards, some supplies that I really love to use, and you'll find a lot of them in most of my work. And then I'll introduce some other different techniques and tools and supplies and things like that. Like right now, I don't use metallic paint hardly ever at all, but at this point I am using a metallic gold by Deco Art. It is a fluid acrylic, and it has this really beautiful like bright gold sheen to it. You can see it glittering in the camera. It's really, really, really nice, and I'm really fond of it. It's really a beautiful intensity. But I can add, as you see, some extra water and fade out those edges as well. And then that helps set the tone for these geodes too. And I was trying to replicate a geode in the fact that there are all these translucent layers that sort of play over each other, and they build up these beautiful scenes of contrasting colors and complementary colors that work really well together. I did decide that I needed to come back in with some more smoky darkness, and that's always easily achievable with my Stabilo. I love a Stabilo Marxol. Buy them, well, I usually buy them by the pack of 12, but I have at one time bought them by a pack of 100. No lies, babes. No lies. But yeah, so I love it. It's a staple for sure, and it's really easy for me to add some nice smoky grunginess with it. It turns out really well. And just adding some extra water and really pulling those colors around and, giving them some life and making them overlap and play on top of each other. And I can definitely see my geodes starting to take form here. I did lose faith a little bit. I'm not going to lie. You can ask Jen. I text her and I said, Jen, I don't know if it's going to work. And Jen said, just keep going. And it's true. Sometimes I just need that. So at this point, I have gotten out my quinacridone nickel azo gold by Golden Fluid Acrylic. And this is such a beautiful orange color. So when you really water it down and fan it out, it can take on a sort of a vintage sepia tone. But when it's nice and thick, it's just this like almost like a little, I don't know. I like to use the term pop in the mouth, though I know that's a, obviously a little abusive, but that's not how I mean it. It's just like this, like little, like if you suck on a tart candy and you're like, oh, like that. Like that's how I feel. That's a much better representation. That's how I feel with quinacridone nickel azo gold. Like it is such a delightful alternative to oranges or to vintage tones because it does both, and it really lends itself nice to this geode formation that I have going on. It's just a little pop of color that's not metallic, and it's really nice. Now I decide that I'm going to come in with some chunky glass glitter, and this particular color that I'm using, it's a gold by Prima Marketing by Finnabair, and so it's really, really luscious, and it has lots of texture to it. And I have used some Scrap Mats glue. So I don't usually venture outside of gel medium when it comes to like a thick adhesive, but all my gel mediums are matte, and I needed something that wasn't matte when it dries because I'm embedding glitter in it. So if you put glitter in a matte gel, it turns the glitter matte, and then it's very interesting. You sort of get these like little chunky pieces of like plastic instead of glitter when they're covered in matte gel. So I just really wanted to make sure I used something that wasn't matte. So I used some really thick Scrap Mats glue that I had sitting on my desk. And then I dumped my glitter on top of it and then really pushed them down into that glue, that adhesive. And now I've gotten some actual glitter. So I have metallic paints, I have grungy Stabilo, I have my white Sharpie, and I have some beautiful glass glitter. And it is adding lots of texture, and there's lots of dimension going on. And I'm just going back and forth between all of my supplies. And like I said, this is an experiment. So I had to try some things and layer some things and figure out sort of what was going on and what I liked and what I didn't like. And I will tell you this, the only thing I wish I had done when it comes to the finished project is just expand those areas of the veins in the geode more, so they don't take up enough of the overall piece. And that's okay. I learned it. I'm good to go. I mentioned before, I'm not 100% sure if I'll do this again, maybe with a different color palette. I do have a whole different idea in my brain based on the mood board. And so this is funny. This is like really out of my comfort zone, I think, trying something so stinking new for me. But I did use a lot of products, and I will say this to you. Like, if you're going to try something really, really new, don't go out and buy everything that's on the supply list. Try and find some materials that you're already familiar with and try to make those work. Because I do believe that one of the reasons I feel confident in showing you this, gosh, I'm so sorry, my phone is going off this morning. One of the reasons that I feel confident in showing you my actual experimentation here is because like I knew the materials that I was using, and I can tell you how I used them and why they worked and maybe why they didn't. So keep that in mind when you're trying something new. If you hold on to some things that you're used to, it'll be easier to reevaluate the parts that maybe didn't work for you, because you'll know, oh, well, I used that tool that I'm used to in a new way. Maybe that didn't work. Or all of my supplies on this side were normal, but this was the new one and it reacted weird. So keep that kind of stuff in mind. I always try to have something familiar when I'm trying something new. You can see here I am using some fluid matte medium by Golden, and I'm applying some gold foil. So gold foil is my jam when it comes to needing a little bit of metallic or shine. And so I knew what I was doing with this. I know how to get the sort of grungy, distressed look of gold foil. I know how to apply it. I know how to make it permanent and all of that. So I use that again to sort of off balance this gorgeous glitter and the metallic paint and the white Sharpie and the graphite, and everything is turning out really well. So here is the finished piece before my last layer. And I say that because now I'm going to cover it in resin. It does need that super shimmery shine, sheen, like crystal finish to really look like a geode. The only difference is that I'm not pouring like half an inch of resin, and I don't have like lots of really thick layers. Most of my layers are made with just flat materials, flat supplies, flat mediums, pens, pencils, paint, that kind of stuff. The only really thick area is my chunky glass glitter, and you can see in the detail shots how it sort of sticks out of the resin, and it's really cool too. So in the end, I'm actually pretty happy with this project. I am using not a double-sided, a two-part resin. It is a hardener and just the resin itself, and you mix equal parts. It's by Amazing Casting Products, and they have all kinds of really great resin additives, and they have this is the clear cast, and they have a white cast, a quick cast that cures white. This does take 24 hours, so keep that in mind. And it's equal part ratio, so you put 2 parts into the cup and you stir really well. Because it's a 24-hour cure time, you have lots of time to mix it, and you want to make sure that it is 100% mixed, because if you don't, then it will never dry completely, and it could turn a little sticky. Oh, hold on, sorry. Sorry about that. I have a dog, and he wanted to come play. But so, okay, it's a 2-part resin, and you mix it really well, and then I am using a foam brush. I poured it directly onto my piece, but then I'm using a foam brush to spread it out so it's nice and thin, I do want it nice and thin, but I need it more importantly to be even all over the place. I don't want any divots, because I do want that like glassy, rocky finish. And then I have a couple pieces of just some tissue paper on the sides, some printed tissue paper. I knew that I would have extra resin, and so I shouldn't waste it. Resin is not one of those things that you sort of just do a little bit of. I had some, I covered some pieces in resin. So I covered it in resin, and then I set it to dry, and here we are. This is our finished piece. You can see in these close-up shots the really shiny glass effect that it has. This one's really good. The metallics show through. The glitter's really beautiful coming through in this texture piece, and I'm really happy with it. So thanks for being here. Check out Jen's piece. Here's her gorgeous project based on our mood board. And as always, subscribe to both of us. You get lots more videos that way. Join our Facebook group, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.